Hey everybody, it's Michael from Infinit Nutrition, keeping you in the loop this week with Kyle Coon, longtime Infinit partner. Kyle was in 2018 first blind individual to compete in Ironman in under 11 hours, represented Team USA at 2020 Tokyo Paralympics, and longtime Infinit athlete Kyle Coon. How you doing, man?
Michael, great to chat with you. Thanks so much for having me on.
I
Happy
know.
to keep people in the loop.
Exactly. We were talking beforehand, and we're kind of saying that we should have met each other by this point because of inside of Infinit offices. Obviously, we have an athlete that works with other blind athletes, and I've heard about your name for years and years. So I'm glad we've met.
Yeah, it's great to finally actually sit down and chat with each other. And like you said, I've been using Infinit now for several years, and it's amazing how once you get the right fuel in your body, how your performance just goes through the roof.
Perfect way to start the conversation. I love that. So, hey, congratulations on the last weekend up in Canada, right? That was really third place, super, super solid effort. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks so much. It's been a rough start to the 2023 season for me. I had to go under the knife, had to have some shoulder surgery that was really long-term overdue back in February, so that delayed the season a little bit. But just getting back out there and getting back out on the race course, Montreal this past weekend was my first race of the season, and it was awesome to just get out there, race, be with my Team USA teammates, and just throwing down on the race course, remembering what it's like to race, and the fact that I got to bring home a little bit of hardware against some of the the top blind and visually impaired triathletes in the world is just icing on the cake.
And that was a world race, so most of the horses were there, right?
Yeah, I definitely. It was a World Triathlon Para Series race. So there were a couple of the tip top dogs weren't there, but I would say most of I would say over half of the top 10 guys were there. So anywhere guys ranked from third to 12th in the world were pretty much all there, and so we got to really duke it out together, and we've been racing against each other now for so many years that it's at this point it's like draw straws, flip coins, and who's gonna beat whoever on this day, which is exciting. Like any race we go into now in the men's visually impaired field, it's really a toss up as to who's gonna take the victory, and I think that makes our racing extremely exciting.
All sports are looking for parity. You apparently have it, so it probably is pretty exciting.
It is.
That's cool. Another thing, congratulations on you were nominated or named to being UCF's one of top 100 athletes of all time. How did that come about?
To be quite honest, it was kind of a big surprise to me. I guess technically I was like an honorable mention or something, because the sport that I competed in when I was at UCF wasn't technically a collegiate sport, but because I was a UCF graduate, and I've gone on to have some pretty awesome athletic success. I was named as one of the honorable mentions. Like if I had been if wrestling had been NCAA sanctioned at UCF, and I went on to have the career that I do now have, it was pretty special to be considered one of the top 100 athletes from one of the largest universities in the country. So I didn't actually know until the person that wrote that article tagged me on Twitter. So I was like, whoa, that's a big surprise.
That's awesome. Yeah, congratulations. That's really
Yeah,
neat.
thanks.
So was wrestling your primary sport kind of growing up type of thing, or what? Tell us a little about your development. Obviously, you lost sight at 6, if I remember correctly. And
Yeah, so
yeah, just walk, because obviously as an athlete myself, I just am amazed by what you've done. It's just incredible.
Yeah. So I guess in a way, my younger, my athletic journey growing up really actually did prepare me for triathlon, in a very non-traditional way, not in any of the typical triathlon ways. I grew up in Florida, so like you said, I lost my sight when I was 6 years old. I had a rare form of eye cancer called retinoblastoma, and I was diagnosed with it when I was 10 months old, and basically grew up, going through cancer treatment, and I loved sports. My parents were from Chicago, so we were big, Chicago Bulls fans, Chicago Bears fans, Blackhawks fans, Cubs and White Sox. Absolutely loved sports. But I didn't play any team sports. It just wasn't as big a thing, when I was, 4, 5, 6 years old. But after I lost my sight, I really, I didn't really know if I was going to be able to play sports or watch sports or follow sports or anything along those lines. And I met Erik Weihenmayer, who eventually went on to become the first blind man to climb Mount Everest and the seven summits, tallest peak on each continent. And he sat me down and basically told me that being blind was not it wasn't a death sentence. Essentially, I could still live and have this really awesome, fulfilling life. And so he actually encouraged me to try out rock climbing.
At what age was this?
I was 7 years old when I met Erik, and
How did you meet him? What a blessing to have that drop into your lap, right?
It really, really was, because my family was living in Jacksonville, Florida at the time where I grew up, and Ed Weihenmayer, Erik's dad, lived in Amelia Island, which was about a 45-minute drive from my parents' house. And my dad was in a Rotary Club, and Ed Weihenmayer was the guest speaker at the Rotary Club. One day that Dad happened to be there, and Dad walked by and was like, "Whoa!
Oh, by the way,
your son's blind. My son just went blind. Is there any way Erik can call and talk to him on the phone or something?" And Ed's like, "I'll do you one better. I'll arrange for Erik to come into town, and I'll book him some speaking engagements, and we'll just sit down, and Erik and Kyle will actually meet in person."
Sweet.
So that's how that came about, and it really was pretty awesome and incredible, and that actually started a friendship between myself and Erik that lasts to this day. Erik is he's a really good friend and mentor. We've done some pretty cool adventures and stuff together over the years, and we keep in close touch. So it was really awesome. But yeah, he was the one that basically told me, "Hey, quit, don't be lazy, go out and try something crazy, give rock climbing a try." And so my family we were a very close family, and so we decided, well, if Kyle the blind, if the blind kid's gonna do rock climbing, then the whole family's going to do it. So we all got into it. My sisters and I joined a competitive rock climbing team, and we actually rock climbed competitively around the state and the southeast part of the U.S. for a few years. And but then things like school got in the way, and my parents valued education a little bit more than athletics. And so we decided, my sisters and I decided to focus on school a little bit more. So throughout middle school, it was mostly just focusing on school, and then in high school, I'd always been interested in getting into wrestling because I wanted to be part of a team. I wanted to compete in sport and all that. And through rock climbing, I knew that I could do sport, and I had gotten into tandem cycling, and I was doing downhill skiing at that point, and all that. So I was an athletic kid, and then in high school, in my freshman year of high school, the high school and college wrestling rule books allow for blind wrestlers to compete against sighted wrestlers. And so it was, it's like, well, this is a no-brainer. So I wrestled for all 4 years in high school, and then went on and got the chance to wrestle at the University of Central Florida for a couple of years before some just some injuries, and all that just kind of caught up with me, and I got more into just general fitness, and was starting to lean more toward endurance sport and all that, because I while I loved wrestling, I was like third stringer. I was bench warmer. It's really hard going in and just getting your head pounded into a mat for 2 or 3 hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week, and then you may only get to wrestle like 3 or 4 times a season.
Oh, trust me,
if you're lucky.
I was a really average wrestler on a really good wrestling team.
Yeah.
I had a guy that was 20 pounds lighter than I was that just would pound my head in every single day. So I
yeah.
One thing
Yeah.
I was, in preparation for this, one thing I kind of thought about is that team, for a blind athlete, it's always team.
It is. Yeah, it really is. Because look, I pride myself on being really an independent person. I do tons of stuff on my own.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot, the world is not built for a blind person, especially someone who can't see anything at all. And so there is a lot of, you have to develop relationships with people that, you have to learn to trust people. You have to, because especially once we get to triathlon, like we're I'm swimming out there in open water, and biking at 30, 31 miles an hour, or sometimes even 50 or 60 miles an hour if we're on an aggressive downhill or something like that. And then I'm trusting someone to lead and guide me efficiently and safely through all of these courses. But like you said, like just across the whole spectrum, team, really does take on a much greater meaning for me, because I have to have a team of people around me. Like if for some reason a website isn't as accessible as I hope, and like for some reason I'm trying to click on a button that's not working, I can turn voiceover off on my phone and hand it to someone, and they can click it. So it's there's all these different aspects, but yeah, like the team of people that I put around myself has been my biggest asset in life, and learning to embrace that is I think is what allowed me to be as successful as I've become.
Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with Kyle?
My relationship with
Zach? That was Zach.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So so I met my race, my current race guide, Zach Goodman. I actually met him about 5 years ago now, and he was he was competing on the UCSD, so the UC San Diego Triathlon Club team, and I was just some age group blind guy, just trying to muddle my way through and enjoying triathlon. And I actually attended a triathlon camp that was hosted by at the time elite blind triathlete Amy Dixon, and she put on this camp, and I met Zach at that camp. He was guiding another athlete, but later on that year I was competing at a World Cup, and I think it was my first ever. It was my second ever World Triathlon race, my first ever World Cup, and I needed a guide, and I remembered Zach, and so I reached out to him, and because he seemed like a cool, fast guy, and he was like, yeah, I'll race with you. Cause actually initially my first first thought was, hey, if Colin Riley isn't racing with anyone, I'll reach out to him. But then, the start list comes out and Colin is racing with Brad Snyder at that race. So I was like, oh, Colin's out. and so I reached out to Zach, and the two of us just, kind of clicked. Zach is, just a super incredible athlete, and super strong. And then we raced together all through 2019 when I moved to the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center. And then the pandemic kind of, because Zach lives in California and I lived in Colorado, the pandemic threw a lot of screwballs into the picture. So I wound up training and racing a little bit more with Andy Potts, but now Zach and I are back racing and training together a bunch, and our relationship has continued to grow and progress and develop, and we're now coached by the same coach, and our visions and goals are really aligned with with each other, and that, like, look, our focus is what can we do to make the team of Kyle and Zach the fastest. So our coach he really tailors our training to that goal of getting to the Paralympic Games and making us as fast as we can possibly be, so that we can bring home some hardware at the races that matter. So that's Zach and I, we it's like any relationship, anyone out there who's had who's been married or had a serious partnership, or a friendship that lasts forever. I mean, you have your disagreements, but you're always able to move past them, because the person that you're that relationship is with is important to you. And Zach and I, the race, the guide athlete relationship is, I'm putting a lot of faith and trust in Zach to to, like I said earlier, to guide me, to keep me safe and keep us moving forward as fast as possible. And at the same time, we're trying to have fun along the way. So it's a really cool unique relationship.
Yeah, theoretically, the best relationship would one where you're better as a pair than you guys are as individual pieces. I mean, that's the whole thing with team. If it's team first, then it's team first. Then you do whatever you need to do individually. Personal beefs don't matter as much if it's about making the team better.
Absolutely, and that's one of the really cool things about Zach and me, is that like look, Zach probably could be, I know he has the the talent to go out there and race professionally at a 70.3 or even an Ironman level, and but he he's chosen to give up that to pursue trying to be the best possible guide he can be for me. And really, when we break it down, like, as a, I'm not really that great a swimmer. I don't have particularly, impressive power numbers on the bike. And, when you stick me in a straight up running race or, a running time trial or something like that, I'm pretty average. Like I'm nothing, I really am nothing special. But when Zach and I get out there together and we put together a triathlon, whether it's, whether we're competing at, a continental championship, a World Cup, a World Series, or the World Championships, there's just something about when we work together, and when it comes to when the gun goes off, like there's something special there that the two of us are able to conjure up, and that's through, Zach, always knows kind of the right thing to say at the right moment in a race, and it's really cool, to be part of that, and we really, like you said, it is a we are significantly better athletes when we are racing together than when we're racing separately,
It's all
which
the
is
relationship.
awesome.
It's almost like a golfer caddy relationship, but you're the golfer and he's the caddy. Where
It's actually that's a really good analogy. Actually, it's a really, really good comparison.
yeah, because that's the caddy's job, is to keep the golfer steady, calm, so your confidence up, making sure he's all set, and it seems to be somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
So
I love that analogy. I'll have to use that one.
please, it's free. So we all know it's a swim, bike, run. Okay, blah blah blah.
Yep.
We've all
Yep.
done that, been there, done that. So, but what's different for your day versus my day as an Ironman, right? So, what are the things you do differently in transition, having to, communication as far as in the swim? These are the things that we do differently than a triathlete would do during a normal Iron. The things that we would never think of. I would never think of 90% of the stuff you're about to say.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, so I'll just walk you through it like from start to finish. So so like the setup, like it really all starts pre-race with like the setup of your transitions. So like, and it's you're really, Zach and I talk about, we walk, transition one, we walk transition two. We figure out like, okay, this is, is it a wetsuit swim? Is it a non-wetsuit swim? We have to, like, I have to know that the turns and the layout of the entire transition, so that I know like when we're going from swim to bike, from bike to run, so that I can efficiently move through all of that. And then you have to make sure that your transition zone in your area is dialed and set up. So so we take quite a bit of care and focus on setting up that that transition area, and we decide, okay, are we going to start with the the back, are we going to start with the back wheel on the bike rack, and then are we going to front rack it, or are we going to rear rack it when we come into T2? So that determines what side of the bike we put our running shoes and our running tether.
So are you putting your shoes on? So he's putting his shoes on, you're putting your shoes on. So that's
correct.
That's similar,
Yep.
Right? So you're
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
There's no team effort
So,
there. Got it.
yeah, no. So there's not really any team effort there. When the team effort does come into play, though, especially in transition, is is stripping my wetsuit. For some reason, even though I've been practicing it for years and years and years, I still haven't mastered taking my wetsuit off with my own feet. And we've done some timing tests and stuff where it really is just like, Zach can get his wetsuit off in like under 10 seconds. And sometimes he doesn't even, sometimes if it's close to the wetsuit cutoff, Zach won't even wear a wetsuit. So that way his transitions are even faster. And, we're just able to, so he's able to help basically be my wetsuit peeler, in T1. So he'll help me rip my wetsuit off, and then, he tosses my wetsuit into our assigned bin that we have to get all of our gear into. And then that gives me time to grab my helmet, strap my helmet on, get my blacked out sunglasses on. And then, by that time he's already, locked in his helmet and everything. And we start with, similar to, similar to the World Triathlon pros, we, and all the Ironman pros, we start with our shoes on our bike. And so grab the bike and then just run to the mount line and do not quite a flying mount, but just a swift, swiftly mount the bike and take off. But yeah, so, but rewinding a little bit back to the swim. So a lot of people are very interested when it comes to the swim, because they're like, yeah, like how do you swim open water as a totally blind person, and how do you know when to turn and all of that. So it's the swim is one of the hardest places to communicate with each other, for me and Zach. So I'm really lucky that Zach could have been a collegiate, like he was good enough where he could have been a collegiate swimmer, back when he was in college, but he elected not to go that route. So even, on my best day, Zach is still, way, way faster than me. So he basically uses the swim as a time to kind of get a nice easy warm up in before he hammers it on the bike. So he does all the sighting, and all of that. He keeps us on course. I swim with so it's a bungee cord that wraps around my upper thigh, and then the other end of the bungee cord wraps around Zach's upper thigh, and that bungee cord can be no longer than 80 centimeters according to World Triathlon rules, so about 31.5 inches, so like 2.5 feet long. So you're pretty close together, and Zach and I basically swim side by side. He's not allowed to pull me in the swim. If he was, my swim would be significantly faster, but
too bad.
no, I have to
Get that rule changed, baby. Change that rule.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying. But no, so and so Zach indicates to me when to turn based by basically tapping my shoulder. So like, when we come to a turn buoy, we've looked at the course ahead of time, we've swam the course ahead of time, and we know that, okay, there's, just like in Montreal, we knew, okay, we have about 300, we have a 336 meter stretch from the pontoon to the first turn buoy. And then it's a left hand turn, and then a short stretch, and then a slight left hand turn, one more slight left hand turn, and then one hard left hand turn, and we have about a 346 meter stretch into the T1. So we've mapped that out beforehand, and we know the turns, and so when we come to the turn buoys, that's when Zach taps my shoulder, I make the turn, taps my shoulder again, make the turn, and then when we get to the very last turn on course and it's just a straight shot into transition, we have a signal where Zach will tap, he'll just tap the back of my head, and that basically means full gas, gun it.
I was going to make a bad joke about him slapping you on the back of the head, but you made it for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I mean, it just kind of works out that way.
And if you're having a bad swim, you get dunked. How's that?
Yeah, pretty much. So, but yeah, so there's really.
Is it a time trial start? So is it on your mark? Is it wave start, or individually each pair are going out one at a time?
It's a wave start. So
Okay.
So all of the so in my racing, so I'm totally blind, so I'm designated what's called a B1, and we get this year 2023 we get a 2-minute and 41-second head start on athletes that are designated B2 or B3. So athletes that can that have some usable sight and vision, but they they can't they're far from 2020, like most of them,
Right.
not allowed to drive or do anything like that.
Right.
So I get a 2-minute and 41-second head start on those guys, and then like in Montreal, I think there were 3 B1s, and so we all started together, and so there can be some strategy in that, where if that there's a really fast swimmer, you try to get on their feet, or
Okay.
something along those lines. So one of the guys that we were racing against this past weekend, Jose, he and I have raced against each other for 5 years now, and we're pretty equal in the swim. So we usually wind up actually swimming side by side together. Sometimes he's a little bit faster, so I'm able to get on his feet. Sometimes I'm a little bit faster, so he's able to get on my feet. So we know each other so well now that we know that we're going to come out of the swim together. We're going to be 1-2 out of the water usually, and so there is that. But essentially, you are time trialing. It's just it's just, it can just be sometimes you get to have some company while you're time trialing.
Are you talking most of the? I mean, are you communicating together as a team?
Not in the swim.
Oh, no. I meant more you're transitioning onto the bike. I mean, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like once we're out of the water. So like once Zach and I like come out of the water, it's constant communication. So we come out of the water, and Zach tells me unhooking the tether. Then he's and then I grab his elbow. Especially from the swim to bike transition, we just we run hard, and I'm trying to unzip my wetsuit with one hand, hold on to Zach with the other, trying to get my wetsuit down around my waist, and he's telling me left turn, right turn, high feet, hurdle over this person's shoe that's randomly in the middle of the transition area or something like that. And then he gets us to the bike. He puts my hand on basically my handlebars on the tandem, so that I know where I am orientation wise. And then we just go to work, getting our doing our thing. And as soon as my helmet's on and buckled, I let Zach know I'm ready. He does the same thing whenever when his helmet is buckled, and then we're ready to unrack the bike and run to the mount line. And he gives me a 3-2-1 stop or a 3-2-1 mount, and then we mount and take off. And then once we get on the bike, it's a lot of again, it's a lot of communication between us. Zach is yelling out my heart rate or power numbers, depending on the race course. He's yelling out like he's telling me who's around us. If for some reason someone has gotten out of transition ahead of us, he's giving me a time split, like it looks like they're about 10 seconds up the road, or it looks like they're about 30 seconds up the road, or or it can be Hector's coming fast from behind us. And then he also lets me know about pretty hard or aggressive turns on the bike course. So if we're coming up to a tight left hand 180, it's a left 180, pressure on the right foot. So he's giving me cues like that. And then if we have worked it out with our coach beforehand, to have me in certain heart rate and power ranges. And so Zach will every minute and a half, 2 minutes or so look down and make sure that I'm in those power ranges, and he'll yell out my my power numbers or my heart rate numbers to kind of let me know that, hey, I'm either above or below the number that I'm supposed to be hitting, so that I can execute the run that I'm capable of running. And then our bike is our swim in world triathlon racing, we race sprint, so 750 meter swim, and the bike is 20K, so it goes by super quick, 20, 25, 26, 27 minutes. And so coming into T2 there's a lot of stuff going on.
Your head's got to be exploding.
Yeah, it's because Zach is because we're decelerating from 28 to 30 miles an hour down to basically 10 miles an hour, and Zach's telling me unstrap right foot, pedal, unstrap left foot, dismounting, 3, 2, 1, dismount, and you come flying off the bike and sprinting through transition, and then you're trying to navigate, trying to swing this big behemoth of a tandem bike around these tight corners in transition, and get to the bike. We usually front rack the bike, and then so
you got to rack your own bike.
Yeah, well Zach racks the bike. So, but yeah, he throws it on the rack, and and this is where the pre-race setting up of transition comes into play, because if we've done everything correctly, I wind up where my shoes are right at my feet, so that they're like, I don't have to go fumbling around searching for them. Zach doesn't have to waste time fumbling around, making sure that my shoes get to me, or his shoes haven't gone skittering off somewhere. So then it's just a matter of, how quickly can I get my shoes on? And then we grab our run tether, clip that around our waists, and then we're off on the run. And the run is really where the majority of our communication takes place, because, Zach is, constantly communicating, to me, slight left, slight right, jump over this crack, 3, 2, 1, speed bump. And then he's also able to give me, heart rate readings, pace readings. He's able to, he's calculating, how far ahead we are of someone, how far behind we are from someone. And then in addition, usually we have a coach out on course as well, giving time gaps and time splits and all that. So there's a lot going out on the run.
Yeah, I was thinking, I mean, because his words have to match up to your imagery.
Correct.
And that would take years to get right. Because I mean, what I could say something and you're going to visualize it completely different, and you're going to think that the speed bump is 1.5 feet further than it actually is, or something like that. I mean, the system that it would take to put that together would just, it's like an old marriage almost.
Yeah, it really kind of is. And, it's interesting because, like, since Zach lives in, California, I live in Colorado. I train with, I train with other people. But, so we're always a little rusty the first, few days, when we meet up, and start working together again. But after so many years, like we've just ironed it, we've ironed it out. We have our system, and we try to be as consistent, with our language and our verbiage and all of that. Like we've very rarely changed. Like we keep it as simple as possible. That's really our mantra is, keep it stupid simple, and then do the simple things well, and then do the simple things a little bit better. So Zach has basically been guiding me the same way from, with little tweaks and modifications here and there to try and improve things. But we basically use the same language and verbiage. It's not rocket science. There's no need to reinvent a wheel when the one we got is pretty good. So yeah, it's just, sometimes he'll, it'll be like, 90-degree left-hand turn, or big sweeping 180 right-hand turn. Or, we always do this little countdown, right hand turn in 3, 2, 1 turn, speed bump in 3, 2, 1 speed bump. And, I make sure that, and if it's a slightly larger speed bump or something like that, he can, he'll say something like, big bump in 3, 2, 1. And so I know that I gotta do a little bit more of a hurdle than just clear it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like those little nuances. And,
are you actually in some like brushing him or when you're running? I mean, because I just would think you probably almost run as a single unit, I would think.
I mean, the reality is blind and visually impaired triathlon is a full contact sport.
Okay.
It's,
yeah.
You're bouncing off of each other.
Okay.
So like, there are definitely times, I mean, yeah, when everything's going perfectly, like we're in sync, like our arms are swinging, together naturally. Like, the goal is, to make it so that, the tether that connects our waists, you don't even notice it's there.
Mm-hmm.
But, quite often, like, especially as you're, we a lot of our run courses are pretty technical. There's a lot of like, run 200 or 300 meters, hard turn, run another 100 meters, hard turn, run another 100 meters, hard turn. So it's like, so you're constantly, he's constantly keeping his head on a swivel because, we're racing with other blind and visually impaired athletes, but then, you can also have, other paratriathletes from other standing classes out on the course at the same time. And So you're having to navigate around them, any obstacles that are on course, volunteers tossing you water bottles.
Yeah.
There's, so like I definitely bounce off of, so sometimes that tether can, snap tight, and I'll bounce and ricochet into Zach. So so fortunately he's a super strong, solidly built guy. And so far we haven't had any major mishaps.
No stitches.
And
No stitches.
so no, not yet, at least, not yet. So when I've done some trail running with some other guides, there's definitely been some much more major wipeouts and stuff like that, but it's all good.
So talk about what's your typical training week look like, and also I'd love to find out about your nutrition on, kind of typically, do you have a target as far as how much carbohydrates you're looking at per hour, or I'd be interested in just kind of your overall nutrition strategies.
Yeah, for sure. So my typical training week is for me it seems pretty busy. But it's normally Monday through Friday. We swim at 7:30 a.m. and our swim ranges from anywhere from an easy day might be 2,500 meters, a hard day might be 4,000 to 4,500 meters. And we usually are done anywhere. Our swims normally wrap up around 9 o'clock, and then it's off to breakfast. And then like right after breakfast is usually a bike, a run, or a brick session. And then, quick lunch. And then it's usually off to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We have strength at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we spend about 90 minutes in the gym. And then usually Tuesday, Thursday are a little bit lighter, a little bit less volume days. Well, for me, Thursdays are like my active recovery day. But then I'm also, because I had shoulder surgery in February, I spend a lot of time in our sports medicine facility at the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center. So I'm doing rehab 3 or 4 days a week on top of strength training, and then the swimming, biking, and running. And then usually Saturdays are long brick days, so like a 2 to 3 hour ride plus like a 30, anywhere from a 20 to 40 minute run off the bike, depending on where we are at in the training cycle. And then Sundays are usually long run days. So for me right now, long runs are only like 12 to 14 miles, usually with some strides built in there, anywhere from 100 to 200 meter strides. So yeah, it's typical is 5 swims a week, 4 to 5 bike rides a week, and then 4 to 6 runs a week, depending, and then 3 strength sessions, and then typically about 4 PT sessions, and then if time permits, throw in a massage or soft tissue or dry needling appointment in there as well once a week. So it's I calculated it up a few times, and I would say on average probably about 20 to 25 hours of actual swim, bike, run, lift training per week, and then additional 5 to 6 hours a week of all of the other miscellaneous stuff. So
what do you do as far as fueling and recovery?
Yeah, so with all of that, the fueling and recovery is, it's really important. I personally, I love food, so I try to eat as much as I can, real food wise. But a lot of the times, I basically live with my Infinit shaker bottle and my my recovery and my nocturne. Like I have it all just like basically in my backpack that I'm carrying around with me all day, because I know, like, if a training session runs long, I need to fuel. So yeah, no, like usually, I'll have a bottle of, I'll put like I'll put 1 scoop of, my Infinit custom run mix in my bottle for, for swimming. So I sip on that, between sets in the pool. And then, usually, right after swim, it's, usually a pretty decent sized breakfast. And then I use, again, I fuel with my custom Infinit on the bike, and I usually shoot for about 1 bottle an hour. Usually about, depending on where I'm at in the season. So in the time leading up to the season, I do about 130 calories an hour on the bike. But then when I'm in the heart of the season, I do about 260 calories an hour on the bike. And I'm a pretty heavy sweater. So, and I'm pretty salty, and I'm a pretty salty sweater. So my Infinit formula has got quite a bit of sodium and magnesium and, all that fun stuff in it. And then right after, usually, if I can get to the cafeteria pretty quickly after a workout, I usually try to refuel with real food. But if we're doing a workout we have this, we rent out a racetrack in Colorado Springs called Pikes Peak International Raceway, where we do a a lot of brick workouts and stuff once a week. And that's a 20-minute drive from the training center. So as soon as I'm done with my workout there, I make sure that I have my I have some type of recovery, whether that's my custom protein, whether that's another Infinit product. I make sure to have something with a mix of carb and protein in it to get me through until I can refuel my body with some real food. And then without fail, every night I do a scoop of Nocturne. That helps me get to sleep. And I love a little sweet treat right before bed. So that's my nightly thing.
That's one of our best sellers. It's such a cool concept and it really does, because the way it is. If you're training 25 hours a week, you get to, and you're like a piece of bacon, just crispy laying there.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, and being able to get something that's going to calm you down and actually, non-drug, but make you a little sleepy. That stuff, it's awesome stuff. Yep.
Yeah. No, I love it. I mean, whether I'm mixing my Nocturne with straight up water, almond milk, oat milk, or real milk, it doesn't matter. Like, if I've had a particular heavy training day, I'm not ashamed to say I'll throw 2 scoops of Nocturne in there, and I'm out within 10 minutes of laying down.
That's
at
awesome.
the end of the day. It's awesome.
Do you have insomnia at all?
It's really easy for my sleep cycle to get disrupted.
Yeah.
So like for me, especially since I have no light perception, like, it's one of those things where I have to rely on a schedule. So I pretty much, I almost go to bed, when I'm in my good training cycle, I'm in bed at, between 8 and 8:30 every night. I try to be asleep before 9 o'clock every night. And then I'm up, basically every morning at, between 5 and 5:30 a.m. Mountain time when I'm in Colorado. And so it can take a couple of days to adjust to, especially when we're.
Yeah, how do you go into Tokyo? I mean, I assume that you start that cycle a couple of weeks ahead of time, just getting your body used to it and then get on the plane, or how the heck do you do that?
Yeah, so it's we've really started experimenting a lot more with the sleep stuff in the last year or two. We knew it was important going into Tokyo, but we hadn't really dialed things in super scientifically just yet. So for Tokyo, we were really fortunate. We went to a pre-camp that was kind of halfway between the U.S. and Japan. So we went to Kona first, and we did our pre-camp in Kona, and then we got to the village. I think 6 days before. 5 or 6 days before our race in Tokyo. So, then it was just a matter of, trying to, it was basically get to bed as early as you possibly can and sleep as long as you possibly can. And, no matter what, just make sure you wake up at the same time every day. So we were waking up at, we knew that race day, we were going to have to be up at 3:30 a.m. in order to, have all of our gear ready, get down to the buses that were transporting us. So we were waking up at 3:30 to 4 o'clock every morning in Tokyo, just to make sure that our bodies would get on that schedule as quickly as possible. But now we're a little bit more scientific about it. We time the we look at, okay, how many days out are we getting to the race. So, how can we get on the time zone as quickly as possible? So like when we go to Paris, so we're going to France at the end of July, and we're going to be there for, 2.5 weeks before we actually race. So we'll be well adjusted to the time zone, by the time we race, in August at the test event. But it's but yeah, it's we look at, okay, how long is the flight? When should we eat? What should we eat? Should we take melatonin? Should we take some other type of sleep aid? Something along those lines. And a lot of the people that do have sight, they're using those blue glasses or red glasses, or I don't know, when the discussion turns to what color glasses they should be wearing to filter out certain kind of light, I just kind of tune it out, because I'm just like, yeah, I don't need that. So, but no, for me specifically, just getting on a schedule is the biggest thing. And I actually have found that I've gone over to Japan so many times now. I think I've raced in Japan 4 or 5 times. I find it going over to Japan, I've got it dialed. Like, I just try to stay awake on the plane. By the time we land, I just, I try to stay awake until we get, until it hits about 7 or 7:30 at night. And then I crash, and, it takes me about 2 days to get my body on a good cycle, and I'm good to go.
Right.
Still trying to crack the European code. So, but that's a tough one. So we'll get it figured out and dialed by next year for sure.
Cool. So this year you've got the points just opened up with Canada, and
Yep.
you've got Europe coming up. What are your big races you got coming up? And obviously everything's gearing up towards the Olympics, right?
Yeah. So, like we said earlier, I went to Tokyo. I got 5th in Tokyo. So I was 41 seconds off the podium. So, I was like, man, like, I know I have 41 seconds in me. And so everything is geared toward getting back to the Paralympic Games, and getting on that podium. So, but for this year, like you said, the points just opened up, and getting that 3rd place result in Montreal was huge. For me, the 2 races that I'm really zeroed in on in 2023 are the Paris test event, which is like August 19th, I think it is. That's the chance that's the first chance that we get to have, where we get to go and we get to see the course that they have proposed for the Paralympic Games. So we get to swim the swim course that they have they've determined. We get to bike on the bike course, get to run the run course, and they always can absolutely make changes to it, but the test event will largely be basically a dress rehearsal for the Paralympic Games in 2024, and then the other big race of the year for me will be the World Championships, and that this year that's in Pontevedra, Spain. So that's, I think, September 23rd. So just about a month after the test event. So those are my two key races this year. Obviously, since my season got started a little bit later than everyone else's, I would say that I'm trying to build up to where I peak at World Championships. I'd really like to perform well at Worlds. While I've podiumed at World Championships before. That was in 2021, right after Tokyo. This 2023 is looking like it's going to be the absolute strongest men's visually impaired field of all time at the World Championships, and just to be in spitting distance of the podium at that race would be a huge success. But so that'll be my key race for this year, and then have a short little off season, and then we'll find out what the schedule for 2024 is, probably in November, December. But yeah, so everything is geared toward getting to the Paralympic Games, and then showing up at the games and executing an outstanding race plan and performing.
Well, that's tough. France for 3 weeks and then Spain. That's really that's tough duty right there, sir. That sounds awful.
Yeah, I mean,
somebody's got to do it, right?
It'll be
Somebody's got
someone.
to do it.
If someone's got to do it, it might as well be me. So,
All right, well, hey,
I love it. I love it. It's fun. So
yeah, I've never been to Spain, so you got one up on me. So that's phenomenal. Well, hey, look, it's been a great talk. I think what we got to do is let's set something up again for when you come back from Spain, because I'd really love to hear about your European experience. I'd love to hear about the French course.
Absolutely.
And good luck, dude. We're so rooting for you.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Michael. And yeah, no, you guys have been. I mean, Infinit has fueled me since before Tokyo, and it'll be fueling me for the rest of the time that I'm doing endurance sport. I can assure you of that, because every race, pre-race, during the race, and post-race, it's part of me, and it's part of my everyday thing. So without you guys, like I said, I'm not able to do what I'm able to do. So thank you.
Awesome, dude. So much. Just good luck, and we'll catch you up later on this year. Kick butt.
Let's do it.